And we would like to start the June 2012 CEQ meeting.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, in particular,
You don't have a whip anymore, Larry, so...
Yeah. You need a hammer.
Okay, everything's started. All right, good morning. Good morning. Has anyone had a chance to read the May 2012 minutes on the website?
yes,
Yes. And how
very well satisfactory, so as long as
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
I have to
second.
sustain because I wasn't here.
Okay.
I have to commend you. Listen to my commendation. The minutes and the agenda is lovely on the website. Mike,
Thank you.
Is that I really think it's delightful. You hear, I don't want to hear, but it's clear and as a model.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like it.
Good. All right. Correspondence, right?
Oh, we didn't vote yet.
Oh, no, look. I thought we just did. I'm sorry. No. Is there a vote to
One
accept the minutes?
One abstained.
Motion passed.
All right.
Okay, correspondence.
Chris, did we put the invitation to the Pine Barrens Research Forum?
No.
Oh, Larry got one.
Yeah, this is in my packet.
There was an invitation to the Pine Barrens Research Forum for, what is it, October 4th and 5th at Brookhaven National Lab. Besides that, no.
Okay. Christine, could you just email me that invitation?
Oh, sure.
Because the other packets didn't have it, so we all have that information?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, I just want to remind everyone, this is a public meeting. If you have an agenda, the item that comes up that you're interested in addressing, please feel free to speak, and we'll move from there. Okay, historic trust docket. I'm sorry, Rich, what do you have? Rich, you have some stuff here.
With the housing program, this weekend, the Parks Department is sponsoring an open house, and the apartment at the Maritime Museum in the Bayman's Cottage will be available for viewing. Also, the cottage at South Haven County Park, that's at the entrance to the park there, off of Sunrise Highway, and the new North Fork Preserve property. There's an apartment that was installed within the old clubhouse there. It's not an historic building, but those are the three that'll be open and available for viewing for Suffolk County employees.
Nick Gibbons has been up at the North Fork Preserve a lot recently. You guys have been doing a lot of work up there? The apartment, or
well, I know the apartment was done. I don't know about other projects.
Rich, where exactly is that area, that property?
Mike, do you know exactly where it is?
North Fork Preserve? It's on the North Fork.
Does it sound? I haven't been to
What
the
town?
to the
What
property.
Southwold.
Southwold.
Oh, it's Southwold. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't been out there.
Is that open to the public?
Yeah.
I really don't. I don't know if people are allowed to walk through. Maybe at this point,
I
no.
don't think so.
People have, from what I understand, people have been walking through, just the locals.
I don't think it's an official
It's not
open
open
park
yet.
It will be
There's that major plan that was presented to CEQ that I don't know how long it's going to take to implement, but with the camping and the RV.
No, that's
Right.
not Southwold. That's in Riverhead.
No.
No,
The
that's
North
not-
Fork Preserve has that plan.
Oh, it does?
Has
Yeah,
a giant
yeah.
plan in there. They're going to make it a centerpiece again.
Yeah.
Like that, is it Cedar Beach where they have the campsites and stuff? So basically, there's a giant plan associated with it. But right now, it's not been opened up or anything.
But this is
But
the
there
old
are-
Beagle Club that we're...
No,
No, that's what I'm getting mixed up.
Separate
That's a separate
property.
one? Okay.
Yeah, it's a
that's
separate
fine.
property.
Okay.
But there are trails through there. People do use it.
Okay.
And obviously, Nick could explain further if you need more information.
I was just curious.
Okay.
Place it.
With our contract work in the Parks Department, we're still negotiating to finalize the new contract with the Maritime Museum. There's some issues going back and forth between Parks Department and the museum. And we're also now working on an extension to the Deep Wells contract for the Deep Wells Farm Historical Society. We're negotiating an amendment for another 5-year extension onto that contract. And we're also renegotiate or adding an amendment to the Commandinger Historical Society at the Commandinger Park in Wisconsin to add the buildings onto their existing contract. Now they just have an agreement to do programs in the parkland itself. But they would like to actively get involved with the restoration, upkeep of the buildings. So that's that would be a change.
Regarding Commandinger, is that house safe enough to get into? Because, I mean, it wasn't in the greatest of shape last time.
Right now, DPW is not allowing the group to go in, but by amending their contract, they would then start expending money. It's like the first thought is to put a new roof on the building and to start the process to restore the building, even though they won't get access immediately. They still have to wait for that.
Yeah, I know the community group down there has been pushing very heavily to try and get in there, but
if they feel comfortable, if it's added officially to their contract, if they expend monies that it's going in that direction, that eventually they would be given access to the building.
The changes to deep wells.
Yeah,
it's just
it's just an extension. There's no change to the
contract. That's the Steve Mall group, or
it's
the Chamber.
It's the Deep Wells Farm Historical Society.
Just from trying to remember.
Yeah, it's a separate group from the Chamber of Commerce. There are many members joined the group, but it's a completely separate, incorporated group.
In your opinion, are they managing it well at this point in time?
They do a lot of programs there. We still need to spend, I'll say, more time with them on the historic interpretation of the property and the tours, and get them to do a little more restoration work. But they're very good at fundraising and providing public programs at the site. So I think they just need a little more direction.
Thank you.
Okay, and today on the agenda, I wanted to review the Trigey House, which should have been in your packet, and there's a map as part of it, and photos. And this is a house that's in the village of Amityville. You'll see there's two color photos of the house itself. And this, the reason we're reviewing it right now is at Legislator Gregory's request. He has, the building is vacant. It's starting to have some problems, and so he has asked the Suffolk County Historic Trust to review this for possible historic status within our program. It doesn't have any historic status right now. And so the Historic Trust Committee did meet on site. We went through the whole building and also the outbuilding, the garage behind this. It's another photo here, which is directly behind this house. And if you look at the map, you'll see the house on Ocean Avenue, and they're calling it a boathouse. It's actually a garage that's behind the house that's on the Amityville Creek. And the county purchased this property along with other lots you'll see on your map here, tax lot 4, 5, 7. These were all purchased at the same time in 2000. And it was purchased under the Greenways program for active parkland use. And a contract was gone into immediately with the village of Amityville to landscape the property and create a local park. The village has done all of that, and it's quite nice. Actually, we don't have photos here, but the landscaping does go around these buildings. You'll see even like this tree here and the shrubs is all part of the landscaping in the park, and that's maintained very well. Their initial thoughts of the village was to make this building a senior center, but with the cost of upgrading it for that use, it never went forward. It's remained vacant at the site since 2000, as well as the garage behind it. So Legislator Gregory has now asked to add this to the pilot program, the Historic Structure Restoration Pilot Program that Legislator Horsley established, that we did review and here, and to add this to the list, to the 5 buildings that we're already considering under that program. So that's from his request. In order to amend that legislation, it needed to be within our historic program. So the Historic Trust Committee went on site. We went through the whole house and through the garage, and they have recommended that both the house and the garage be listed to the Suffolk County Historic Trust. Okay, not the full dedication, just list the buildings, and the reasons are the architecture, the design of the main house. It's kind of a traditional colonial revival style home from that time period. There's a property list here of ownership, and this property is actually quite interesting because it goes all the way back to the ownership of the Ireland family that had the mill on the opposite side of the road, which is now Main Street or Montauk Highway, and this property was all part of the mill complex in a sense. And actually, the village historian thinks that the section of the garage that faces the canal is actually an early warehouse structure from the mill complex that was here at the head of this creek. That would still have to be determined, but that's his from his research. But it was definitely used as a garage for the time period we're looking at here at the house. And also this section here, attached to the most eastern section, was also, he thought, part of the early firehouse that stood on Montauk Highway. And that was, these two structures were moved together. So he's very interested in actually creating a nautical museum within the village in that building. Those plans are just ideas at this point, has not moved forward, but that's what he would like to do. So that's the one thought of use there. Legislator Gregory especially was interested in protecting the house by getting something occupying the building there, but we of course reviewed the two buildings on the site. They are from 1918. We also recommended changing the property name to the owner who built the house, the August Dittman, and lived in the house until 1966. And so we would change the name to the Dittman House and Garage at this time with the historic listing. And the Tri House is simply the name of the property owner at the end. And that's when the house was split up into two apartments, which it is now, and was rented out each. It was a rental property.
Is this fireplace original?
Yes. So the picture I included, some of the outstanding features for this house are all the tile works throughout the house. The village historian remembered, he actually knew him personally, remembered he was involved in the ceramic tile business in New York City, and it kind of shows when you go through the house. The whole kitchen, including the ceilings, are all subway tiles. The bathrooms, again, have the subway tiles, which is fairly common, but it was extensively used in this house. And this is the most, there's two ceramic surrounds. This is the fireplace in the living room. There's also another one I didn't send in the packet, but you could pass this around. This is the fireplace in the second floor in the master bedroom. And this is the kitchen and breakfast room. And it's all original, it's all intact. When they made the apartment, they just put up some partition walls to separate the two spaces, but essentially the building is original, and so that's why the committee was very comfortable in adding it to the historic list, and just also for the development of Ocean Avenue, which is a very nice early resort street, if you want to call it that, for the village of Amityville.
You're recommending changing the name to a more recent owner?
No, to what we're going to call the historic owner who built the house and lived there for 50 years, and that would be its historic name. It was purchased under the name Tri House, but we add an historic name from our research.
But historically, the land belonged to the Ireland family.
Well, he bought the property from the Ireland family in 1918.
So there would be no mention like formerly the Ireland property or something like that?
Preserve the name.
Yeah, I was thinking, I have a real issue with that.
Sure.
We're
open to those recommendations.
In Huntington, we have Breezy Park.
Right.
And it was named Breezy Park for a reason. Okay, but the Molinoff family owned that property for over 100 years. And there's no mention
here. Ireland over 100
of the Molinoff family on that sign.
Right.
Even to say Breezy Park, formerly the Molinoff farm. Okay, which would have at least given the family some recognition, you know?
Yeah.
Sure. I think the buildings as they are should, that name, the person that had the house built should be attached to that. But the property, I definitely would agree with you, and I think the village would agree. They call the park just Nautical Park, but there's no signage identifying it as such. So I think some of the history should be, on a sign, some sort of signage or historic signage
Somebody
within the
says
park.
Ireland, who was Ireland, and
Yeah.
does a little research and finds out
Yes.
something about the Ireland family, you know?
Yes, it is a very interesting story for that part of town.
At least if they had like the Ireland Mill Park or something like that, because that it really disturbs me greatly, as Rich is saying, that you're not acknowledging the first guy that developed the property. I also had a question.
Just wanted, as we're talking about the property, we didn't recommend the property in this listing because it's all been re-landscaped with a very modern, suburban, if you want to use that word, type of landscaping right up to the buildings. So it doesn't retain any of its earlier landscape features. So we just listed the buildings and directly around them at this point.
So,
but not to say that your recommendations can't go forward, but I just wanted to point that out.
or maybe it's the Ireland Dittman, property or something like that. But somehow, I think the original owner should be in there. But aside from that, what can you tell us about the creek aspect of it? Do you know anything about the creek, and when you talked about the possibly making a nautical park out of the whole thing?
Yeah, that's the village's idea. That I didn't, I guess, finish the full explanation. The county, has a contract with the village of Amityville to maintain this park and the buildings. Actually, these buildings are within their contract, and so we would have to work with them making these recommendations. But I think definitely with the garage structure, they'd be very interested with all these thoughts. That's what the village historian is very interested himself in promoting that history that you're bringing up.
Is the creek though still navigable? I mean, can you?
Yes.
It
and
is.
It's all with homes along it, with bulkheaded, with boats,
bulkheaded.
Private boats.
So then you can have an interactive kind of nautical museum of some sort that would also be with the water, and you can talk about conservation and protecting waterways and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, you could do all that. It would be a good site for it. There's actually a boardwalk right to the east of the garage. It's really a garage now, but so this building is not right on the canal. There's a boardwalk separating it to the waterfront, and then that was all new, and then the bulkhead was also restored, I guess, at that time. So you have and there's a gazebo right on the canal also.
On the property.
Yes.
So there's also then the programming that they would do at a later time would involve all these things that you're talking about potentially.
That's what they're interested in,
Okay.
yes. With the garage, yes.
Mike?
Right. Yeah, because I noticed on the site plan the boardwalk being over there, and
Yes.
yeah, this is a small creek. About how wide is it?
I don't have that on the plans here, but it's full.
Never.
It's full width at this
So 50
point.
feet?
It looked 50 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, so that becomes an attractive thing for a property to have.
Yes.
Okay, so, obviously they can maybe do something in the future. Basically, waterfront access is always a problem, for example, I'm thinking Blydenburg Park, where they occasionally have canoes. That's, again, something far in the future. But if you've got waterfront access with a peerage like this, it's, something to consider. You're on open water. The other thing is, and Dan, I would ask you this question. We have a comment in here that the landscaping is too modern right now to include. Is there any thought out there to possibly restoring it to the way it once might have been? And if we don't, what is the impact of not having the landscaping or the rest of the property not associated with the house in the historic trust? I mean, is there a problem?
Well,
Like Richard said, the land there is really the town's responsibility, and they're the ones who did all the modern landscaping.
Which the county paid half of it. So, there's a contract we have with the village that the county gave $250,000 towards this landscaping that we're looking at. It's quite extensive and actually very nice with walkways that go all through it. But there's not a. It doesn't relate to an historic design.
Yeah.
It's a new modern park, almost like an urban park, really, with the lighting and everything that they have there. So it's not a negative thing. It's very attractive.
It is attractive.
You know.
And a house of that era would have kind of like a minimalist landscape. So you'd be carrying out thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff to leave like.
In which case, Dan, never mind.
But that is why you said earlier you're just listing the house and the
Right.
garage.
All right, so that makes.
But your recommendations, and I think the village historian would like to have that support, because that's what he's trying to get the village to do himself.
Going forward.
Is to recognize that site for its long history with the village. So he'd be very happy to have those
Right,
recommendations.
so functionally, though, let me just finish. Functionally, then, the fact that the land is not associated with the house in a historical dedication sense, it's not going to have any, if you will, cause any problems down the road, since we do have an agreement with the village.
With the village.
Amityville for maintenance and things like that.
Yes. And within this park, you have like what you see in traditional like marine parks with the anchors, that kind of thing. But it's not in a, you wouldn't behind your house have a big anchor on a cement slab.
Near the Little Red Schoolhouse
So-
in Elwood, they've got a giant propeller on the road over there. It's sitting there inland. I mean, you just never know.
So that's the kind of thing we're not looking to
All right,
move
but we're not
away
gonna
from the
lose
house.
We're not going to lose the land in terms of it turning into scrubland or anything like
No.
that. This is a long-term commitment.
Yes.
Okay.
The village has invested a lot of money into this.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry also to mention, while they haven't been using the building, they did re-roof the whole house. So that has made so it's safe from the weather in that way.
What's the status of the water quality and sediment quality there? If you're going to make it a nautical park.
They'll die if they enter.
No idea.
Asking a hard question for me to answer. I don't know.
Just before you jump in and make it a public access park, I think you ought to check on the condition of the waterway.
Right.
Larry, knowing the area, it ain't that great. I mean, it's probably, you're not going to die if you jump in immediately, but you might get long-term damage.
All I can say, a private home is right next to it, and everyone has docks and
And
has
I
their
think
private
there's
boats there.
a marina on the other side of the creek,
Yeah.
or some boat
It's a
restoration.
heavily used by Boaters
Yeah.
Creek.
Right. So
Jim?
it's actively used in that sense. But I know people swim in it.
Ooh.
By listing,
Right.
by listing this property, Richard, does that mean that the Historic Services and the CEQ has oversight for anybody who wants to go in there?
Yes.
To restore this thing? They're not going to want to gut this thing, and
No.
turn it into a.
That's the
three-
point. When it's
Modernize
listed,
the way they modernize
when
the
it's
landscape.
listed, it allows it to go into this program, which we'll see, what the possibilities are. But it definitely gives the oversight from the CQ, the Historic Trust. And then, as you remember, when we reviewed that resolution, we stated that any tenant, and the agreement with the tenant was to come back to the CQ for a review and approval. So any
Okay.
work program is
Okay.
to come back here for review for all these buildings that are going into
I mean,
that
because
program.
basically Horsley's program is they're trying to encourage private funding to go
Yes.
in there and restore these things.
Yes.
And you just don't want somebody giving carte blanche to somebody going there and gut this place out
No.
and turn it into apartments or something
Right.
like that.
And we're starting the program with 2 sites, the Elwood Schoolhouse and Black Duck Lodge, which Public Works will be writing up a scope of work that has to be completed, and all those projects will be reviewed both by the Historic Trust and on a regular basis by the Parks Department and Historic Services.
Okay, all right.
Go
Does
ahead.
it have to conform to the zoning?
That's a good question. It's county parkland, so how I would presume you just want to be a good neighbor there. It's very close to the neighboring residential area, so I would think no matter what, you'd have to take that into consideration here. But whether it's officially has to follow the zoning, I don't think so.
Okay, Eva?
Is there any other historic property on the water nearby that's either the county's involved with or that the village is also working on?
Not right here, no.
So this really has a large part of their interest, in other words, what I'm trying to...
It's a real focal point for that part of the village. This would be on the east like from downtown, south and east, but it's a very central parcel
location.
on that
So
part of the
it
highway.
really will become a real focus. So the cooperation of would be in your best interest to work with
Yes,
us.
and also just another component, the town of Babylon is also part of this contract agreement. So
So you have two towns.
we have the village of Amityville and the town of Babylon in contract with Suffolk County to help maintain and improve this park.
Okay, that's good because there's a lot
With
of
the village
opportunity
taking the lead and the daily maintenance. Even when we were there, they have maintenance people on site.
So what do we need now? A motion to accept this into the...
list it.
This house and
To list it?
garage listed as a historic property for the house and the garage, not
I'll
the
make
for the
that
land.
motion.
now.
We
Second.
need a use and preservation category.
You also have to do it at the historic trust.
Okay, so, go ahead, Rich.
I make that motion. Accept this into the historic trust and add it to the list.
For you,
What use?
Use and preservation category.
So
use and preservation.
with some of your thoughts here, if you want the preservation categories, like we viewed the house under its architectural interest.
Normally we get a sheet with that.
Yeah.
That's why we're functioning. Normally we don't have the sheet of
Yeah,
the
maybe you can list all that
recommendations.
stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Mike, we weren't sure how much with the listed property we were going to go into with this, as we do with the dedicated properties. So, because putting this into this program, like this property, the garage in concept, if it went the way everyone's thinking, and the village historian, would be a museum use, for the garage actually, and the front house would be functional as a rental property. So I don't know if we want to tie the hands of the village or anybody at this point.
We also though have an architectural and historical preservation aspect to this.
Yes.
So I mean, I think we're just, on the main house, we're jumping into three areas. Potential use as a rental, the architectural significance, both in itself and also for the area, and the historical significance. And I think those are the three main categories, and then the barn becomes what, for museum use?
Yeah, but I don't know if we don't know if that's possible. There's no funding for it right now. So it could actually be, if we did both as functional, and you could even do functional museum as a dual use for the garage, just to open up the possibilities.
I'm a little jumpy about this right now. I like a little bit of certainty on it. Is there a problem if we held it for a month until we got the actual categories so that we don't mess up anything?
No, I think, like the committee's already approved it to the listing. I think Legislator Gregory is very eager to move the amendment forward. He might have been moving it forward as we're discussing it. But if you just...
Well, the next legislative
Well,
meeting isn't
even
August.
if we list, it's still going to have to come back here regardless of what the use is going to be.
Right.
I have a question here. Simply, I mean, when you
And we
dedicate,
didn't... Okay.
you have to state category and function.
Yes.
This is not a dedication.
Right. We haven't
This
done it...
is a simple listing that says it's historically
Yes.
significant.
Yes. And we haven't done that in the past.
And
Just listed
so
it.
it does not need a designation the way a historic trust property does.
Right. You could give your recommendations, I guess, that I, bring forward, just like the village historian's giving me recommendations. But Jim's right. In the past, we just listed it. We only did that under the dedication.
And then any future use has to come back to the CEQ anyway.
Yes.
Okay. I was just going to ask, can we do it that way?
The listing is a type 2 action. It's administrative, just so you know, it's part of the resolution.
Yeah, but are we doing this as a historic trust or CEQ?
You're doing this both.
Because we're two bodies, remember that.
You're doing this both. Usually in the past, you did a resolution that was a joint historic trust and, council resolution under SECRA. So it would be approved, for listing by the Suffolk County Historic Trust, and that the recommendation from the CEQ would be as a type 2 action administrator.
Well, Rich, your motion is on the table then, so I guess it would be a type 2. It would have functional for the barn, functional for the house.
Well, again, we just said we don't know if that's necessary for a listing.
Okay, sorry.
So you can give, I think, recommendations that you'd like the history
Right.
of the early mill use of the property, the mill site use,
And the name.
to be, part of the interpretation of this site. I think I'm comfortable with that. And then the reason I'm hesitating, because we have a contract with the village, so I don't know all the ideas that might come forward. Anything, we just want to get the buildings occupied. So just, whether the museum use can go forward now or has to wait until the village has enough funds to
We
do
looked at
so.
this one once before,
No.
a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Go ahead, Jim.
I'd like to add to that resolution one thing, that as a listed property, any changes to the structures or proposed uses will come back to the CEQ for further consideration.
Yes, and that's just formalizing it, but it would be done
I'd
anyway.
like that formalized in the resolution.
Right.
Because I came in a little late.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Really sorry. Can you just outline why you're recommending listing and not dedication?
Under our guidelines, like when you dedicate a Suffolk County property to be a landmark, you're really looking for something extraordinary, that either the history or the building type, jumps above the rest.
Okay.
This, both the garage and the house are in keeping with the vernacular, the type of houses that you see on that street, but they didn't see anything that made it jump out from the ordinary, so to speak. But it's important just for the context of the development of that street. And it's not to say down in the future that it can't be elevated to the dedicated status.
Okay.
And the listing status still provides all the guidelines that the dedicated status does, but it gives more options in the future. And that's also, we just don't know what all the ideas
Does
would
it
be.
limit possible funding?
No,
Okay.
no, not at all.
So the motion then, I guess, is type 2, has CEQ. And I'm not putting words in your mouth. Type 2,
And
list this thing with recs, recommendations. That's, I think, what you guys are trying to drive at.
And has to be individual for each building, because they're not contiguous,
So it's two
they're separate.
resolutions
Yes, you need to.
You're on the floor.
Rich, start again.
Provides that it's
Let's go what I
Type 2.
said.
Make a motion that this is a type 2 action requiring no further review on the secret, that it's to be listed and not dedicated to the Historic Trust. Is that right, Jim?
right.
What was the third thing?
It come back to for CEQ
Oh, that's to
review.
come back to CEQ for review,
For any changes.
name.
for any
Consider-
changes to the building that might take
Buildings.
by a user.
Buildings plural.
Well, you need to
You
do,
need to do it twice.
it's
for the
two
house.
listings we're looking
I
at.
make that for both buildings.
Both resolutions, two resolutions.
Okay.
And can we add, and I'll second it, can we add that but one of the recommendations that they use the name Ireland somehow in the future for the property.
Establish historic provenience.
Yeah,
Any other discussion?
on both buildings.
Okay. All right. Is there a second to that motion?
She seconded.
She said, I'm
I-
sorry.
I did,
Okay, all
yeah.
in favor? Motion passed. Thank you, Rich.
That's all I have.
Okay, moving on.
No, up.
Recommended type
Oh.
1 action. Proposed.
There's an updated.
Proposed declaration as surplus and subsequent sale of 230.8 plus or minus acres of county-owned land in Yaphank Town of Brookhaven. That's in your folder on the table.
Gloria, do you mind if I just mention that this is similar to the surplus and sale review that we did for the Lindsay bill, I guess it was last year at this point, in which that bill is looking to cut parcels out based on the zoning boundary. Now we're going back and the county's looking to surplus and sale based on the tax map parcel boundary. There was a small discrepancy in the two, and technically, under the last review, there was a handful of acreage that wasn't included. Now we're going back and cleaning it up to cover that balance of acreage. And I'll turn it over to Bob.
Good
Good morning, I'm Bob Braun from the Law Department. Mike has more than adequately described why we're here. We're just trying to conform a piece of this to the tax map lines rather than to the lines that were originally drawn for Legacy Village, and then later the Lindsay bill that declared all of this stuff surplus. I think the difference is just under 39 acres additional being added to what was previously declared surplus. And it's not for any particular use at the moment, it's just to make it available for sale in that configuration.
A couple points I want to try and bring up. Essentially, you are conforming, according to the maps and according to the reso that's before us, you are conforming the surplus land to the actual boundaries of the property that was presented to us a while back. That differed, as I understand it, from the surplus declaration.
I'm not sure I follow what you're saying, Mr. Kaufman.
We did a study on this. We did an EIS on this a while back. And it covered all of this. When the surplus declaration came out, it differed slightly from the original study area. It was actually smaller.
Yes.
This is now expanding back to the original study area boundaries, as I understand what you're presenting. Is that accurate?
What I believe the case is that what was previously studied included only part of lot 6.2. It's section 815, block 1, lot 6.2. Only part of that was included in the previous declaration of what was declared surplus.
Okay. Not the EIS,
Right,
the declaration.
not right. And now we're adding the rest of lot 6.2. Okay. And that's the only change.
That was studied as part of the EIS.
Yes.
The distinction is critical in that if we're making a surplus declaration and we've also done an EIS, we have to conform the boundaries of each to each other. That was the problem with the surplus deck in that it was smaller, essentially, than what the EIS had studied. What you're saying now is you are literally comporting the boundaries of the EIS with what you're actually trying to sell. In other words, you're matching them up.
Yes.
Okay. This, of course, also indicates that parcel A, which is where the stadium was originally going to be talked about, that's not part of this.
That's not part of this.
There's no more A, B, C, or D.
The problem was, again, that we talked about A, B, C, and D, which were the Legacy Village configuration, and then started, moving lines around. I don't want to say indiscriminately, but
so you're not selling this with a plan to develop it.
You're
selling it to somebody. They got to figure out what to do.
Yes, and they'll be back before CEQ or depending on the level of review, it may be in the town or whatever, with their own secret study.
The EIS covered the fact one of the options or alternatives was simple sale of the property with no plans per se to it and development under existing zoning, which then throws it into the hands of the town that would have to do the
So it's not being sold with the idea that here's a plan, this is what you have to do.
Right.
And that's what's important.
No. There's
what's important.
There's no specific plan for.
And there's no requirement in the contract of sale that a certain development has to be.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mike.
One other thing, adding on to what Jim just said, when the EIS was being developed, we specifically looked at several components. One was a build-out component for the possibility of Legacy Village. The other was a raw land component, as I remember. I know because I'm the one who was really insistent that it be looked at that way, just in case. So right now, the Legacy Village EIS portion is essentially junked. It has no relevance.
The study of that use is no longer
I'm just
relevant.
establishing it. I know the answer. I'm just establishing it. So then we are dealing right now with the raw land component of the EIS, which analyzed the raw land, said there was really nothing of giant significance on there, which could allow, which then would allow us to do a surplus declaration. Okay, in other words, the raw land component of the EIS applies at this point in time, in my opinion. And you're seeking a surplus recommendation based upon that. I know I'm drawing a lot together, but that's basically what we're trying to do.
We just want to add the rest of that tax lot to what was already declared.
Conform with the study boundaries, basically, which we've already studied, and that's the basic point.
In as much as it's more than 100 acres.
That's why it's a
Type
type
one.
1.
The type 1.
It's a
with a
type 1
negative.
action. If the resolution has to say that. And inasmuch as there's no plans for development, it's a neg deck.
That would be my motion if I were to make it in the next couple minutes. I'm just looking if there's any further legalities or anything like that associated with this. Jim or Mike, do you see anything?
In my opinion, if there's no development associated with it, there's no development required as a condition of the sale, the action before us is a simple surplus and
Yeah,
sale.
that's what we did the last time.
designation. I can't see anything other
Aside
than
from the
that.
boundary shift, which comports with the
Are you going to make the
EIS.
motion, Michael?
Oh,
Get
okay.
there. I don't see a problem.
It's taking you too long, though.
He has to leave early, remember that. Go ahead, make a
Excuse me
motion.
for a second. I'm trying to splash this across the record so that when we get sued, you don't go to prison. Okay? I'm not going to go upstate for you. Okay, yes.
Go ahead.
All right, I will make a motion. I believe this to be a type 1 action because it is over 100 acres. I also believe that the surplus declaration merits a negative declaration under seeker.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Eva. Any more discussion? All, go ahead.
Just on the motion, the once this passes and the county passes their resolution accepting our recommendations, this does not have to come back before the council to execute the sale. This
No.
this
No,
review
fine, yes.
this review is the
Fine.
surplus
Oh, we're done with
designation and the authorizing the sale.
They're
Okay.
free and clear to do whatever they want.
Yes.
Unless they
Unless there's some
tie something
Yes.
to it.
absolutely,
Something else.
absolutely.
And make that clear that if something's tied to it, like there's some plan in place at the time of sale, then we do.
Well, I'm certain, just to put it out, I'm certain that whoever buys it will probably have
Yes.
some
But not
idea,
conditional.
but it's not a condition, not gonna be a
Right.
condition
That's not
of
the action
sale, no.
before the county.
No. Okay. Okay, is,
First and a second.
yes. All in favor?
Wait,
Motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danamora or Clinton?
Wow.
Which one do you want?
Amazing.
As long as we're not handcuffed together, I don't care.
What about leg cuffed?
All I can say is realistically, since 2009, or maybe even 2008, we've been dealing with this. Hopefully this puts
Okay.
it finally to bed.
All right, moving on. Recommended type 2 actions.
Amazing.
Ratification and recommendations for legislative resolutions laid on the table June 5th, 2012. Mike, do you have anything particular in these that we should be made aware of?
Nothing that stood out to me that was out of the ordinary.
They're all
Mostly type
type
2s
twos?
or unlisted.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a motion to accept? Make a
Motion accepts. Give the
Motioned by Eva. Is there a
To
second?
accept.
second.
Second by Mike. All in favor? Motion passed.
There's another one of those.
Yes. Ratification of recommendations for legislative resolutions laid on the table June 20th, 2012.
Technical correction, June 19th.
19th.
I'm sorry.
June
It says 20th in the
Yeah.
minutes. Okay, 19th. Thank you.
Sure.
Mike, is there anything that we should have our
No,
attention?
same situation.
Basically unlisted, type 2. Okay.
Make a motion to accept.
Okay, who's seconding?
I'll second.
Mike seconded. All in favor? Aye, motion passed. Thank you. Okay, next, type 2 action. Proposed sewer district number 7, the Medford Woodside Plant Upgrade, Town of Brookhaven. Good morning. Please state your name.
Ron Warren, the Director of Operations and Maintenance, Sewer Sanitation, DPW.
All right, if you could please explain your
There's no early
project.
release.
We have a treatment plant built 35 years ago by Farber Associates. There's steel tanks, the structural problems with the steel tanks that have to be addressed. We have to sandblast, epoxy, and coat. We're also evaluating the treatment process if it's it has enough capability to handle the design flow. Based on our recent understandings, the flows at this time may not be able to be treated. So we're evaluating whether that the plant will be able to meet that capacity, 400,000 gallons a day. as part of this project.
Okay, Mr. Warren, a quick question. The little description of the project, preliminary evaluation indicates that utilizing the existing tanks by raising their sidewall areas and providing new technology will extend blah, blah, blah. How much higher are you looking to raise these sidewalls?
4 feet.
And
4 or
what
5
about
feet.
the views from the surrounding neighbors looking at it, screening it, etc.?
Yeah, we have significant screening already that you really, it's very, we plan to plant more screenings if necessary. We're hoping that it's not going to be necessary, but this is just one of the options we want to entertain.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, you're talking about raising it 5 feet according to our document. Well, I know we said 4, I have 5 over here. However high you raise it, so that you can meet the effluent limitations. Is there a new technology? What exactly is involved with doing this? Is it simply extra capacity? How are you retrofitting?
We've asked a number of manufacturers, and one we're very familiar with is sequential batch reactors. And the one company that gave us a price for the equipment for installation told us that they could meet 300,000 gallons a day at the process strength that we are now accepting, but the 400,000 gallons would not be possible without raising the walls.
Well, again, I don't have a problem with raising the tanks, but I'm trying to figure out if you raise the tanks, is there a new process involved, or are you simply increasing capacity?
It would be a new process. Right now it's a conventional activated sludge denitrification filter process. So this new process, sequential batch reactors, part of the process is that tanks are 20 feet deep, and these tanks, as they are now, are 14, 15 feet.
Okay, well, you're still not exactly answering the question. Okay, the sequential batch reactors, basically you're taking, say, full-strength effluent here, reducing it, then putting it in, and reducing it, and then putting it in, and reducing it. Is that an accurate way of saying it?
The sequential batch reactor utilizes it's a one process in one tank. It utilizes a activated sludge process that has it uses computerized controls to stop the aeration, settle, and then you take the clear liquid off the top of the tank that's on top, and the sludge on the bottom is returned to a waste or returned back to the plant, and that's how you treat it. And it's a denitrification process, which we've.
So that's in the first tank.
Right.
Okay. Then what happens?
No, all 3 tanks. There would be 3 tanks.
So they're all the same process.
Right. They'd be batching, as each one would be fed at a different time. As one was being given waste, it would be aerating in different parts of the sequence. It does.
But they're all doing the same thing. It's just
right.
a sequence, as you're saying. Okay. Do you expect effectiveness to increase?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been using this type of process at multiple locations in Suffolk County.
Is it tertiary?
Yes, it's tertiary.
Basically, then you have proof that the new technology will handle what's going on over there, and you'll hit the nitro loads, which I think are going to be going down anyway. I think they're 10 parts per million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're less than 10 parts.
Okay, well, that's the standard right now. It's 10.
I don't think the ground recharge is changing. I haven't heard of any which would really put us significant challenges. But this treatment process typically puts out 3 to 7 parts of nitrogen.
The final question I have is how are you going to be assessing the recharge beds? There's information in our packet that you will be evaluating the recharge facilities, which include both underground pools and open beds, to ensure their life is sufficient for the next 20 years. What are you going to be doing?
Ground borings, seeing,
scraping off the bottom.
Right. We have recharge pools at this time. We may want to make them deeper. Whatever is necessary to get us through the, foreseeable future.
During I have some things about the construction aspects. Are the existing structures, the way they are, in good enough shape that they can handle this new addition being put on them? I mean, you're going to have to do any kind of retrofitting to the existing structures themselves. Are they stable enough? Are they in good
good condition enough to withstand the new application?
Well, we'd have to have an engineering evaluation of their steel walls.
Right.
There is some deterioration that we want to make sure as part of this project that we address, and also, make sure that we do epoxy coatings. When the plant was built originally, they didn't have the technology of epoxies that they have now. So there is, there's some issues with rust, and that's what we're trying. We also want to have something that we don't have to continuously paint, which these tanks, these are pretty big tanks that we have to spend a lot of time and effort to maintain.
Right, and that the walls aren't compromised right
No.
now to such a degree that you're going to have to do a bigger project than you anticipate.
Mhm.
Is where I'm going with that.
Well, again, it's going to have to be evaluated, raising the height of the tanks. We're hoping that we're evaluating, this one technology, and also if there's some other technology out there, we're always open to, if somebody has got something better that could work with this process, with these tanks. And we like to be cost effective as possible with any kind of upgrade or
So this is at the moment it's more like a preliminary
Right.
look-see. We want permission to do a look-see for
Right.
further
We have
evaluation.
to evaluate the structures themselves.
Mhm.
We have to evaluate the hydraulic capacity, the process capacity. We've had difficulties with this facility for some time. Particularly, we have the denitrification sand filters that we have. Not sand filters per se. Denitrification filters are difficult to operate. They're not really the best technology. There is better denitrification filters. We may want to consider doing that, but they're very expensive.
This is one of
All
the
right,
plants
and
that was failing.
then the other part of my question has to do with the construction, the actual process of construction. Are you in some way augmenting things so that the neighbors are not impacted? By things that are happening on the property? Is there going to be? Is the area that you have to work with sufficient enough to keep all the equipment on site, all the operations on site,
And maintain the buffer?
Yeah, maintain a buffer exactly,
That
and
buffer.
yeah,
It's all
a
woods around
buffer
it
of some sort, and minimize any kind of fallout, if you will,
Right.
from the
We're
process.
very concerned about our neighbors. We try to keep a very good rapport with. There's always a few people who are always very unhappy with us, no matter what we do, and we always try to respond to
Are there
them.
complaints of smell?
Well, smells, noise, and we're always improving. We're always trying. If we see that somebody can see something that they don't, that they feel that might affect the value of their home, we try to straighten that out.
So what I'm also getting at is you might want to come back and just give us an explanation of what some of those things are that you're doing.
Yeah, Mr. Warren, that falls in with number 20 on public input on the long EAF. Is there public controversy related to the potential adverse environmental impacts? And yes was checked off. Nothing was checked off below it as to where that opposition is coming from. You could choose either government or citizens of adjacent communities have expressed opposition or rejected the project or not been contacted. The other option was objection to the project from within the community. So you had, yes was checked off there. So
Well, the
what so
concern
far
is if
it?
you have to raise those tanks, the people there will not be happy. There's across the road on 101, there's a number of houses that are much higher than us, and so we'd have to do tremendous trees to cover that up. The concern is that they're not going to be very happy with this.
Paint the things.
Excuse me?
Paint a tree on them.
Well, that's one of the things that
Self-technology.
I've seen these murals that make these tanks just disappear into the landscape.
That's exactly what I'm talking
which
about.
is one of the things we've considered.
Okay.
Again.
Except for
Larry,
when the season
did you want to say something before? I saw you
You
hand
answered
up.
my question.
Quick question on this one. You said that there's problems with the D-Night. Is this one of the plants that has been failing or was failing until maybe a year or so ago?
Yeah, it's had its ups and downs. We've put a lot of money into trying to meet the, and we're being very consistent as of late recently.
So you're
The
hitting
problem
10.
is, again, if the flows go up another 100,000 gallons, will the plant meet those? And we are contracted to meet those flows.
I assume there's a DEC. Question: is there a DEC hit on this one at all?
There was. They are always questioning us when we have nitrogen failure or any other failure of the process. But they have. We're not under consent order. If that's what you're asking.
Because I know in last year many of the plants that had been out of compliance had suddenly come back into compliance. The county had pumped money in and brought them down to the range of, I think, what was it, 10 ppm,
Yeah,
which is
less
the
than 10
current
parts.
standard.
Not 10, less than 10. 10 is no good.
Okay.
Is there,
2 is no good, but
Motion
Yeah.
unlisted, I guess.
is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Type 2, so.
from environmental.
Yeah, all
Study,
right, type 2.
repair,
All right,
replacement.
yeah, all right. I'll make a motion, type 2. Make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Motion passed.
You got it.
Right? I've got the.
You got the next two?
Yes.
Oh, move.
What's the next one?
Parkland, Sewer District Number 14, sludge thickening, Town of Islip.
We recently, we get constant calls from the community about our sludge hauling to the facility because we have to go through a development homeowners. We've tried to, solve their problems by doing it trying to change the times of the tankers, and we've had some success. There's been, we've made our neighbors a little bit happier. But there's still some concern, and there's new technologies out to thicken the sludge that we transport. We go from we do 5 to 10 loads a week from this facility. We would get down to like 1 to 2 loads a week if we thicken the sludge and hauled it to Bergen Point in a thickened condition. And that's what the plan is, to evaluate which thickening. There's a number. We have belt thickeners. We have an in-tank thickening system that we can purchase, and that's what this project is about.
I have a question. Is this something that's a purchase of a piece of equipment that goes in a tank and?
Well, right now we've had really good success with 2 different types of thickening processes. One is the belt thickener, which you need a building to build, and you have to install it in a building. And this membrane technology, which uses a membrane to thicken inside the tank. We're utilizing that process at the Woodside plant at this time. We've reduced our sludge loads from there from 5 to 7 loads a week to 1 load a week, sometimes less than 1 load a week. So we have some experience in this process, and that's what we're considering. And it all depends on numbers and how they're coming back with the prices these days. We like to keep people honest and look at the competition. If we can build a building and put a belt thickener in there, and that's the cheapest thing to do, that's what we might consider.
Is the belt thickener what you use at Port Jeff?
That's right.
So is this a study to see what you're going to do,
Yeah,
or is this?
Well, we're
the
going to
actual
put it out to
action?
bid, and we know the 2 technologies that we're very happy with at this time. So,
So it'd be either or,
yes.
So it's either
depending
gonna
on the bid.
Depending on the price that comes back from you.
be-
Okay.
We have limited funds that we're aware of.
If they build a building, they'd have to come back.
Construction.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Mike?
How big would this building be?
20 by 30, 35, something like that.
So less than 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, it would be extended to the existing building that's here, which is right here. We'd extend out the front right here.
I mean, so in essence, depending upon which way they go, it's still a type 2 action. Because it's an expansion of existing facility less than 4,000 square feet, and it's also construction, expansion, to bring it up to...
Right. Right, go ahead.
One question. In the packet here, project will require storage of liquid fuels and chemicals. It talks about coagulants and polymers for sludge. Is that a third way of going?
That's part of the belt thickening process. Use polymer to thicken the sludge, and we put it on the belt, and the belt releases the water.
Gotcha.
I have a really basic 101 question, because I really don't know enough about the technology of creating the sludge and stuff. Can you just briefly explain why that's important to do?
to thicken the sludge.
Yeah.
But why?
Less water.
Yeah, less water.
It reduces the amount of water, is what you're saying?
Yes, by a factor of 3.
Oh, okay.
Which, you know, is significant.
Oh,
you know.
yeah, by a factor of 3.
I mean, we go from typically now we do anywhere from about 0.9% to 1.5% solids in our, which is a lot of water in there. Bergen Point is only accepting up to 3%, 3.5%.
I
maybe.
see.
We could even probably go thicker if they allowed us to, but they have problems with handling.
Okay, so, which begs the question for me, because again, I don't know this technology that well. What happens with that water that is?
We treat it.
You treat it?
Yeah, we recycle it back into the plant process and we treat it.
Okay, all right.
Motion? Motion, type 2. Neg deck.
Type 2 action, not a neg deck.
All right, type 2 action. I'm using the old technology. I'm last century, Joe.
Is there a second? Seconded by Eva. All in favor? Motion passed. Third time's the charm. We're going. Okay. Replacement of main pumping station in William Floyd Sewer District number 20.
Okay. What they say about 3 on a match?
Yes.
This is the Leisure Village plan. We have structural and safety issues with the existing pump station, which is, I think that's it right there. We plan to build another one, which will be in the ground. This station consists of two wells, a pump well and a wet well, where the sewage enters it. It's a very deep hole. There's a lot of safety issues involved because it's so deep. It's a very old station. I think it was built in 1967 or thereabouts. We're having, wall crumbling. It's concrete walls, so we want to replace it, which would be right adjacent to it. And it would be in the ground, and you wouldn't see anything actually. Just the excavation.
How many square feet is it?
Yeah.
It's a 8-foot circular, 35 feet deep.
Okay, it's less than 4,000 square feet.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There would be no other structures other than that, and that's pretty much the project.
Any concerns? Any questions? Is there a motion?
Type 2 action.
Okay, thank you. Second? Second. Okay, all in favor? Motion passed. Thank you, Mr.
Michael
Warren.
not here for that vote?
Yes, Michael was out. All right. Okay. Moving on to other business, the updated county environmental assessment forms.
Yes.
Mike, do you want to?
We've mentioned this in the past, but I think it was back in January, the DEC updated their environmental assessment forms, both the long and the short form. We basically have until October 1st, I believe, before it takes effect. I gave a crack at converting our county forms to mimic the new state ones, and I just wanted to get your input. See how you thought the county forms now flow, if you have any concerns about things that aren't addressed, the way the things laid out. I just kind of wanted to get your feedback before we finalize these county forms and use them moving forward.
Okay. Rich, I know you had
Well, I spoke to Mike
yes.
about it before the meeting. My changes are similar to what's already on the forms, but they're more specific to what we look at and what we do and the questions we ask. The forms are more general, okay, and I even think that the towns could use something that's a little more specific in terms of what they're asking. So, if you want to incorporate some of my changes, there are specific questions on the forms that are similar to what I have said. And you'd have to ferret them out, or I could ferret them out.
I could do that.
Show you where they'll fit, or you can figure it out. And
I could work your questions into the form.
I mean, there's no use duplicating what's already there, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But if we get more specific answers.
But if you get a more
Yeah.
specific answer, as
Deals
Michael
with
says,
us, yeah.
you know, it might be better for us when we're reviewing something.
Karen?
And I'm sorry I didn't get to give this the kind of review I probably should have before this meeting, but I see B9, coastal resources. Does it get at special groundwater protection areas? You know, it talks about
What page? B9
coastal
Page 2 of
area,
18.
waterfront, designated inland waterways. You know, the state, mostly upstate, they don't have the aquifer
Right.
issues
No,
that
I
we
don't.
have.
I don't think there's any reference to SGPA's.
And there
We
should
could
be.
we
Yeah.
could definitely include
Yeah,
that in here.
that's a critical one because we have so many.
Very good point. All right.
It's cool.
yeah.
Is there a question in here about critical environment?
Yeah.
And that's an example of what I'm
Yes.
talking about.
Sometimes it just
Get
takes a
more
minute or a
specific.
second
Oh, that's a good point.
What we are looking at.
That's a good point.
You can pour over something and miss it.
There's a question in here that deals with critical environmental areas, and SGPA is a critical environmental area.
So you got it, okay.
But still, I think she's right. This talks about, it just says coastal resources. Should it say waterway resources? Water resources?
I
Oh, wait,
understand
where are
that,
you?
but
No,
coastal
no, he
resources
might
is
be-
something else
It's
under the,
shoreline, it's not groundwater.
you know,
Okay.
Coastal Zone Management
I
Act,
see.
and that goes up to the
So
state
show me
for
where that is,
review.
where's the critical?
What
No,
number?
CEAs?
No,
That may be something that's
What are
missing
you
in here.
referring to, Jim?
Yeah.
The critical environmental areas
For example,
thing
near
on the
near
form.
Kabreski Airport is a CEA. I think it's the dwarf pine plains or something, or right.
Well,
there's
also
a
the
CEA.
pine
Pine
barrens.
barrens.
Pine
Yeah.
barrens.
Okay. And that's not on this form right now. You've got enough for the coastal thing.
Well,
No, I
that's
think
fine,
we
make
Jim
the thing.
Dandy, but I
There's
think they
something in here.
eliminated
Yeah.
CEAs
Did
from
they take-
secret
Did they take it?
now.
Yeah, but so for Suffolk, we still have them.
But you still have them.
They
But
eliminate
once
CEA?
again, it's not addressing the specific.
Here it is.
Where?
D on page 17.
Okay.
I don't know what number it is because it's E.3, then a D afterwards.
8.3,
Yeah,
Is it
CEA.
Page 17.
critical environmental area. So
Oh,
a special groundwater
SGPA,
protection
yes.
area is a CEA. Okay, I didn't know that.
But someone who's not as
Familiar with it,
knowledgeable
may
as
not
you
realize
or
that.
myself
Can we add
Or
that in
Michael.
there? Including?
would not
Right.
know that.
That's
It's
right.
including, yes. it
Throw
is.
in the SGPA over there. For the waterfront stuff, once we make the change, it's got an LWRP, so that works. Then coastal erosion hazard
Slow
area.
down. What?
I'm going back to page 2 with the coastal area. I mean, there-
LWRP, okay.
yeah. There's one other thing. Sometimes communities have some sort of a development plan.
Right.
Okay. For example, I show you Riverhead, which has got a plan right now in Southampton along the Peconic downtown.
Bad idea. List
Okay,
the
and that's
CEAs.
maybe something that maybe it's a land use plan, but it's more of a coastal plan.
And list our CEAs.
So
That way they can't.
I'm not sure how you would throw that one in.
People throwing it there.
The other thing, one of my comments was, does the project encourage tourism? I mean, that's something that secret doesn't even address, usually.
But the state does. The state is on a
And
tourism
it's
thing.
it's an important factor to us.
Yeah.
If you look, once again, I'll say it again, at the beginning of SECRA, it says economic and social and environmental issues weighed equally, okay? So, you know, we can't forget about it.
I found an aquifer.
Yeah, but one of the problems with that is the state, NEPA integrates all of them. Economic, social, and environmental. SECRA is a separate issue, a separate review that reviews environmental. And then when the legislature gets to the point of evaluating and approving a project, they then take into account the economic benefits and the social benefits in light of the
That's
things.
not what it says for the purpose of SECRA. For the purpose of SECRA, if you look at
It does say all
617,
three. Yes, it does.
what?
It says socioeconomic and
It
environmental.
says
It
the
does.
legislature is approving so that we weigh all these things
that's
legally.
the final determination that
Okay.
says that they
It's
have
also-
considered economic and
it's
social
also,
along with the
by the
environmental
way,
proceeds.
if you beg my pardon, it's also, by the way, the LWRP. When Steve Ressler came to the town of Huntington, and I was in charge of it, and he was jumping up and down, this is what you gotta do, this is what you gotta do. If you read the 30-yard policies, they were not to restore the waterfront environmentally.
Yeah.
It was to restore the use of the waterfront for commerce.
No, not exactly. It had the ability, I ran the LWRP and I wrote one. It had the 42 policies.
And did they accept it?
True, but 42...
Did they accept it?
Well, in your town they messed up, but, okay. The 42 policies, you could pick and choose which ones were primarily going to be used by your community. You had to take them into account, the other ones. But, for example, keeping ice out of ports didn't really apply to the Nisswauk River or Stony Brook Harbor.
Of course not, but there was plenty there.
Yeah, I know. It was all over the place.
With commerce on the high seas, and that was...
Joy?
But it's basically the idea that the community gets to ascertain how its waterfront is going to be used. If the community agrees that it's going to be for environmental benefit, that can overrule commerce.
Yeah.
In
That was
Huntington,
our
would probably not do that.
Certain areas it is.
That's not the way Steve Ressler...
Well, that's the way he did it with us. Okay, we were able to make that choice to go for primarily
He and
preservation.
I went head to head on a lot of those issues.
Okay. Joy?
When we finish this discussion, I think it would be appropriate for me to report on the DEC update. I have, if you give it out.
She gave
She gave it out
She gave it out, yeah.
I don't have one.
I left one for you over there.
But you were there.
Yeah, I have you
I
for,
gave you one, though.
Joy, I put you on my agenda for right after we're done with this.
No, I think it's...
Is something pertaining to it right now?
It's pertaining
Okay.
to what we're talking about.
Go ahead then, bring it up right now.
You look at the PowerPoint presentation. There was three separate things. Look at the PowerPoint presentation. This is what was presented for the seeker update and for the state. And a workbook is in progress. The short form will be available online July 1st. The long form, August.
But they already, these long and short forms were based on the updated.
Yes, I understand that. But I was just reporting that there is going to be a workbook available, and it online, it is going to be fillable, resavable, and retrievable. That's a big difference because you used to do it and lose it. And so they guarantee that that will be done. And I think they are going to have many more type 2 actions. And the one that I stored is essentially a smart growth type 2. And they think that they have to get the number right, and there will be lots of controversy over that. So that's, this is put together wrong. The last page is first, if you have a stapled section. The last page is the first section.
Like this?
Yeah. Of the PowerPoint, the last page is essentially the first page. I will report on the other things, but I thought that might be pertinent to our discussion of the county's secret.
Okay, Kara, you wanted to say something? We'll go back to the actual form.
Yeah, I just, this, again, I mean, not being real familiar with these forms, but this stormwater runoff on page 9, it just feels inadequate. You know, not really asking if, because, you know, each locale treats stormwater runoff differently. You know, some may be filtered in different ways, whereas others are not at all. And I'm just kind of curious. I don't have a recommendation on how to strengthen this, but the stormwater area, it's. I wish Tom was here to.
Well, it appears to me that they're talking about the MS4 stormwater permitting process for construction. If you disturb 1 acre or more, you've got to have a stormwater pollution prevention plan in place and followed adequately. Right. So this is now for county-initiated projects on county land, so they would have to have their stormwater construction permits and their SWIPs in place before they do any construction. So that's what this is asking, to enforce that, to make sure that that process is done.
Okay, so you feel, knowing what you know, because you know more than me, that this is adequate? Page 9?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's what that's, because I know at some meetings when they're doing some construction projects and we get the size of that, I've asked about the stormwater pollution prevention plans and what they're doing. That's what this is capturing.
Okay.
To make sure that they're on top of that.
So there's, okay. So we don't need to get any more specific in this area?
I don't see the need to. It's talking about what the law says for the construction disturbance.
On the page before that, page 8, is there any reason to, when we're talking about new wastewater treatment, is there any reason to ask what ppm their goal is, or?
It's not a bad idea.
It's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I mean, right now, in the last 2 years ago, they were having major problems, as I said before, with getting SGPs into compliance. They really put a lot of effort in, and they really knocked the numbers down to around the 10 limit.
You're talking about just for nitrogen?
Just for nitrogen, right now. I'm just talking about. It's not a bad idea to see what they're trying to do or where they're trying to go. We just were asking the questions a couple of minutes ago with the sequential batch reactors, and they're saying 3 to 7.
Yeah,
not a bad idea to put a line in there of nitro or other contaminants. Not that I'm sure what other contaminants come out of there that we monitor.
And then
but Larry would be the expert on this. Do you think there's any other number we should put in there, or not number, category?
Well, I guess you could put nutrients, suspended solids, BOD. Those are the only things that are required. The exotic chemicals are not touched.
Is that something that the boys at DPW would be able to handle relatively easily?
You know, if it's a medical waste, sometimes.
No, I'm talking about just in terms of paperwork.
Oh, I'm sure that every project that they have to have those criteria that they're going to meet. Just like
design standards.
Yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a burden upon them to ask beyond the nitro number?
No.
Okay.
Phosphorus, nitrogen.
So they know about these numbers then?
But I think it would be nice they provide us what the law requires that they must meet and provide us with what they feel that their design will meet. And hopefully it's a lot lower.
That's a great idea.
Well, the law's changing anyway.
I know, but it would be nice to kind of see those numbers right in front of us to see how well
it will be less than
benchmark
5.
to understand where they're.
What number are they dropping down to? 7, 3? I forget right now. At least on nitrogen discharge.
I just thought it was less than 10.
Okay.
So it should be phosphorus, nitrogen, BOD, and TSS.
Anywhere in here, and those who've looked closer, does it ask about pharmaceuticals?
They're not regulated.
Okay, but.
And they're not even supposed to be flushed anymore.
Yeah.
No, I know they're not supposed to be. So
they're supposed to inject it.
Anyways, that's my question. What about irrigation? Do we ask about landscaping and you know?
Well,
that's a good one.
Landscaping. DPW about 15 years ago made a deal with CEQ.
Use of native plants.
Native plants and no artificial
indigenous species
watering and in-ground sprinkler systems wasting potable water on landscaping.
Right, like, well, or at least if we can, yeah, just ask about it. I think those, I didn't notice it, but this is long and I could have
Native
missed it.
plants, and what about the irrigation?
Well,
Not to install these in-ground sprinklers.
But how do you, but as to word it in a
Oh,
question
okay.
here.
The use of native and indigenous plants should be priority.
Water
Not
hardy.
priority. Drought tolerant.
Zero fights, zero
Yeah.
fights.
Is that what they're called? Zero fights?
Zero fights are plants that don't need water.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know that we can go to
I don't know
that
how
far.
many indigenous ones we have on Long
Well,
Island.
this
that are
isn't
zero
requiring,
fights.
this is just asking the
Yes,
information.
yes.
What type of vegetation?
Will
yeah,
there be how much irrigation?
We prefer no
you know?
irrigation.
We've never
We
installed
prefer,
irrigation.
natural
It's set up on
rainwater to be enough for the
golf
plants to
courses.
This
survive.
is for county
Yeah.
projects.
I don't want to see.
We don't really need to hit the irrigation because we don't install it on a county project.
We
I'm
ever
sorry.
do? You never do?
Never have.
That
Except
I-
for,
Even
except,
for-
except
what
for a
about
golf course.
Golf courses, yeah.
Except for golf course, but that's
I
a
forgot
We
that
could
they're
put the question
special
in,
for
we could put the question in
county.
about proposed irrigation.
Golf courses are always special.
Yeah, I could ask anyway.
Yeah,
I think
know.
that's good.
I know.
Better to ask, because it just raises the consciousness
Disinfection
level.
technology for one day sewage.
Disinfection technology.
This isn't relevant here, but even native drought-tolerant plants need to be established before they can be on their own.
Oh, yes, I know that, Dan. The first 1 to 2 years, you do need
Right.
to add some additional water if we
Right.
do have an extended drought. I realize that. I have no quibble with that. I mean,
We
it's
can
these people who have their
plant,
automatic sprinklers on in the rain that drive me crazy.
Right.
We could plant prickly pear cactus all over. Designed in conformity.
Tastes good.
Opuntia.
It tastes good.
They're all over Black Duck Lodge.
Oh, the energy.
Cactus?
The little cactuses.
The fruit that they give
You
off
ever
are very
seen them?
good.
They're all over the
They're
place.
lowering all this stuff.
They give off little purple fruit.
First time I ever saw them was
And they
over
really
there.
taste good.
I never saw them anywhere else.
I have a story about that.
You found something else, Carol, you wanted to bring up?
Well,
Prickly pear
I'm
cactus.
trying to remember
Yeah.
They're
where
edible.
the
Very
energy.
edible.
In terms of the energy, I want to
What
know.
page?
I can't remember what page it was on, but I remember skimming through it,
Well, I
seeing
think
something about solar, what kind of energy it's going to use, and I was wondering if we can ask if they're going to do regular benchmarking, or have they benchmarked? These are for new buildings, or is it could be?
Oh, and leaves and stuff like
Well,
that.
they have to meet
Cactus are a New World plant.
I know that we have a law to meet.
all the latest lead requirements.
Well, it doesn't
No,
require
it's a rule.
platinum, or it just requires
The lowest level?
I can't recall.
Just lead certified?
It's gotta be
I
at
think
least
it's
lead
just
certified.
certification. I don't think
Okay.
you have to.
Do we
yeah.
ask about, are they going to go further than that? And what level are we going to do? Any benchmarking in terms
Well,
of?
I don't feel comfortable telling them they must reach a lead level of, let's say, silver.
But can
No,
have
I'm
to
just asking
require-
a question.
No,
You have
but
to-
asking them.
Yeah.
What
if
are they
they're- right.
planning?
We could put a question.
Just bring it on the table,
Yeah.
make them
Right.
aware of it,
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
can achieve more than
Exactly.
Right.
what the minimum is.
Let's do that for sludge thickeners. It's municipal humor.
That's
They only
good.
have, because of the amount of stuff that's coming in, they concentrated themselves, but they only can take the stuff that everything comes in at the 3% level, 3.5%, 4%. They concentrate, flush out all the water out, and burn it.
That's what I was thinking.
Actually, do they burn? No, I think they may take out.
they send it to
Larry,
the
what do they do with the sludge at Bergen Point, the final depository?
I'm just
I think
curious.
they ship it in New Jersey.
New Jersey?
I hope you're
That's our
serious.
waste
That's why it
repository.
smells so.
They don't burn. They don't burn.
Not anymore. They
Not
did.
anymore. Yeah.
I think it's compacted though.
Oh, it's sludge.
So we have
More-
nice
no,
little
but
bricks,
even more so
compacted
than
sludge that
sludge.
go off to be burned.
I think they dry it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. Yeah, it was the other building that they did
Okay.
If
that.
there's a building, they dry it out, and then technically it doesn't contain a lot of
They spray
toxic.
it
It
under.
could be run back in a compost too.
Okay.
Well, I think Bergen Point
So that's how we hydrofrack.
rejected all that because of citizens' complaints of odors, and they now just make it to the consistency they can pump it, and then they take it elsewhere.
New Jersey.
And some of the chemicals they use just to make it slippery.
Are there any
Why
other
don't they just use
Karen made a good joke. It should be sent out to Marcellus Shale.
Any other comments by anyone on this form?
Can we take a vote on it to accept it for the council based on these changes?
Yeah. Is there a motion?
Oh, well, your energy is on your page 10.
We have to accept it. I mean,
It would be good.
okay.
be good, yeah.
It's a
I'd feel more
formality to show
comfortable.
that we brought it to the table.
Yeah.
I think so.
The legislator made a motion.
Motion
To accept our changes
our
that we
changes.
changed to the Suffolk County long form. Is there a second?
I'll
Seconded by
second.
Eva. All in favor?
Please.
Motion passed.
This isn't the list.
Do any of you know, the city of Milwaukee
Yes.
sells theirs,
My
Milorganite?
Morganite, I've used that for years ago. I used it a lot.
I wonder why more cities don't do that, or what the process is,
Well-
how expensive it is.
A lot of that is beer waste.
Somebody's wasting beer.
It's an offense against humanity.
It's very interesting. I can't tell you most up to date, but it's brought into New York State because it's a product.
Okay.
If it was generated in New York State, you couldn't use it.
Oh,
Isn't that something?
So if I make the Rheingold Brewery again,
don't know the brewery.
I have problems with the waste. But I can't ship it to Milwaukee.
Well, you probably could, but you definitely ship it to New
But
Jersey.
beer waste is good.
Just ship it to Montauk.
Okay, we're going to move along. We have information that Joy wants to share with us. That she handed out the flyers. She mentioned briefly about the PowerPoint thing for the seeker.
Yes.
And she has other things.
The Mark Hurston, he's the deputy commissioner of DEC, outlined Commissioner Joe Martin's priorities. I'm not going to read that to you. I thought you would be interested. So it's the first thing that is reproduced. And the last page, if you could turn to it, is a copy of my Conservation Board minutes. And it deals with some of the solid waste regulations that they discussed extensively. And the next item is what they said about fracking, which you asked me to ask. Since then, there is Newsday covered some areas that they're considering if those counties approve, and I can't believe that those counties will approve. There will be huge amounts of controversy, and the New York Times last week had a good article on fracking. The other, just a few comments that I wanted to share with you. This stream intervention. There's a training manual by DEC that's administered by the Soil and Water Districts. And Pat Rexinger reported on that. And there is a guide, the title of it is A Guide to Living in Harmony with Streams. And I am going to order that for myself, and if it's significant for us, I'll let you know. And the other issue that I thought you would be interested in is the climate smart communities energy, the smart growth committees, the smart committees. 105 municipalities took the pledge, the climate smart pledge, and they are listed on their website. However, it's significant because those 105 communities will be in line for the 12 million in funding, and they will talk to those communities, not to others that haven't taken the pledge. And there are 4 pilot programs, and home, let's see, greener. There's controversy because there are 2 organizations administering these funds. One is an old organization that is from Pataki's administration. The new funding grant is from Cuomo. So one is this cleaner, greener communities goals. That's 90 million. And so I have the website, the DEC website that explains the controversies and the monies available that are going to be available. But they've made it very complicated by having 2 funding sources and 2 levels of bureaucracy to follow through on. I think that's it. It's a very, very good meeting. It's deadly because you sit from 9:30 to 4 and take notes, and one person after another person presents. I asked the question about seeker. I brought it up in a meeting, last meeting. The rumor that we've heard that about regional projects, and the fact that DEC will be the lead agency for seeker projects. That came from, the idea came from the Economic Development Regional Group. But DEC said absolutely not. They are not going to do that. Unless, of course, somebody orders them. But they have no intention or no inclination to do that. So.
And Rich, you're laughing. I want to hear your comments.
My comments. The state DEC never wants to be lead agency. They never want to do the work.
That's what I figured you were going to say.
I always found that they were still wondering what secret meant.
Isn't that a fact?
Larry?
I wanted to thank you for looking into the hydraulic fracturing, because I still feel strongly that this is probably environmentally the most, well, it is the most contentious, but it's the most devastating thing that New York State actually could probably undertake within our imagination if it is not controlled. The thing that I have concern about is you can't believe that the counties will approve it. I think in those poor counties in upstate New York that they will approve it. And I can understand that they have to look out after the economic welfare of their citizens. But at some point we have to rise above the immediacy of economics today and consider what this place is going to look like in another 50 years.
It overlaps my conference on the environment that was in October, and the focus of that was climate change and the hydrofracking issue. And environmentalists will, and groundwater people, and people that are concerned with water, people, they will fight it to tooth and nail. And I don't know how much what you say will override the environmental concerns in those 4 very, very poor counties. There is an impact on the water system, New York City water system, because of the Catskills, the impact on the Catskills. So there are so many truly frightening things. I agree with you, Larry. But what is going to happen when the governor says economically we should do this? What recourse do we have? And the other, I think...
And the problem, Joy, the way I see it is, whatever the governor says, whatever anybody says, whatever any economy say, and whatever the environmentalists say, is going to be left up to the courts. And some judge someplace, or some group of judges someplace, are going to say, this is the answer, and it may not be the answer that, you know, you necessarily want to hear.
Right.
That's the problem.
The other issue that I think we have to keep in the forefront, because it's so significant to us, is climate change, all the climate change issues. And someone raised the question, is anybody, somebody that I was talking to, I don't remember who it was, is anybody dealing with sea level rise in
Yes.
the sense, I talked to David this, in the sense of plans. Any plans for, say, our coastal communities, our Montauk, are we doing anything to look at the issue except talking about it? And I think half the world doesn't believe in, not half the world, half of the United States, I'm not saying
You
what
don't have to
half,
go to the island. Go to Brooklyn.
they don't believe in climate change at all, but
There's a lot actually going on with planning. The problem is that the political will to do any serious implementation. For example, the easiest thing to do would be to actively enforce zoning codes. And, you know, every time somebody says, well, I paid $10 million for this piece of waterfront property, you're not going to tell me where I can build on my property. And if I want to build 10 feet from the bluff line, I'm going to do it. And we're just constantly threatened by, we'll end up in court if you don't allow me to do what I want to do. And that's happened up and down the East Coast. After these hurricanes, like in North Carolina a few years ago, they tried to prevent building back out in Cape Hatteras area. Within 2 years, they were building again. And so it really takes political will to enforce some of the ideas that are out there. And, you know, I think you're right in raising it. I think it was last month we had somebody come in here and talk about designing a bridge for Suffolk County. And I asked the question, well, are you considering where water level will be in 50 years? And he said, well, yeah, but it was largely ignored. Our county definitely ought to be doing it because we are water.
You know, I mean, Larry, some of the things too, you know, some of these building projects are reviewed on the planning, and that's where there's a big failure in there, is especially on the barrier beaches and everything else. I mean, nobody has said on the building plans that government stamps that you build at your own risk, that there is a risk here that you could be flooded or taken out by a hurricane, and you build at your own risk. And if they were to do that, then they wouldn't be able to get a mortgage. Then they wouldn't be able to get funding for a lot of these projects, because the banks wouldn't do that, because they could get wiped out. So the development would go down because these people don't have enough money to build these projects.
Where are they looking to put this new project in Brooklyn? Next to the
Oh, it's
Brooklyn
right on-
Bridge. They're looking to take a piece of parkland and put 2 buildings, one a commercial building, the other apartments.
I thought you should hold
Okay, it's right on the water as far as I can see.
Oh, I even didn't
You know,
think
now maybe it's above the high tide line, mean high tide right now, but where's, as Larry says, where's it going to be 50 years from now?
Well, not only
You'll have
that,
water on the first floor.
in a hurricane of, 1897, the whole half of New York City was underwater.
Yeah. Well, the whole, what do you call it? Downtown for crying
Wall
out
Street,
loud.
yeah, that whole area, yeah.
In
That's
the
all filled.
nor'easter of 92 or
Oh, yeah.
93, a large part of it was underwater. Subways were flooded.
Thank you for the donuts and coffee, please.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where's,
So I'll volunteer to do it next month.
Thank you.
Are we having a meeting next month?
I'm going to be late next month.
As long as we have projects.
So how many
we'll have a
people
meeting.
cannot make it? Let's look at it that way then.
Well, I wasn't
The way you
thinking of
said
how
that.
many.
Oh, the way you said that.
Do we have a?
Do you have an agenda already? Things coming down the pipe?
Not that I know of. They might actually,
Cut off.
the EAF for the Bergen Point outfall replacement
okay, I remember.
might be coming in next month.
So the next time we meet,
Okay.
Kara, would you remind me to bring donuts next
Oh,
month?
well. Even though I was
Very
late today, I'm going to be very late next
No
month.
donuts,
so
no
if you
vote.
need me for a vote.
For a quorum.
You don't need
Okay,
any.
No, I will be
I didn't
about
say
an
An hour
hour
late?
late.
Okay, make a note of that, Mike, so we make sure we have a
Chris,
quorum. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
make a note
Make a
that
motion to
Kara's
close
going to
the
be like an hour
Thank
late
you.
next
A
month.
second? Close the meeting. Thank you, Jim. All in favor? Motion passed. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you. All right, so we'll see then
The
about
issue with
July.
natural gas is that this
I
country is
may
really
have a
kind
little trouble
of
getting here for the July
between
meeting.
our country and Canada. We're awash in natural gas. It's really distribution.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay. If we have to, we'll cancel the meeting if we don't
Yeah.
get a quorum.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, we've always done that. Don't hold a meeting unless you have to.
yeah, okay. So, I might, it depends if I